Before I start this video, I just want to say that it was a really popular request for me to share this on my main channel, so I did. The things that you hear in this video are going to be disturbing, and I also want to add that I had an incredibly happy childhood, bar these things that happened in this video that I strongly believe were paranormally linked. If horror and paranormal stories aren't the kind of thing for you, then you don't have to watch it, and I have loads of other videos that may suit you a little bit better. I'm gonna carry on. Hi everyone, it's Hatsy, and I'm back with a video on the channel which is gonna be talking about my ghost experience. So I have to say, before I start this video, this is not gonna be suitable for any younger viewers that may be watching. It's a very dark story. It's very real to me, and I remember like a lot of what happened, so it's frightening. And I also have to say that before starting this video, I've had several times where I've switched my camera on and I've tried to record this particular story, and for some reason the lights go out, my camera stops working, like I haven't plugged something in, or just like something goes wrong, and I don't know what it is. Like even before starting this, my whole set just fell on the floor, like my camera, my mouse. I wish I was recording at the time, and if I have been recording at the time, then I will actually replay the footage, but it's weird. So this story starts with my childhood, and I'm going to be doing this in the Sims 4 as well, doing like my story in a machinima style, because for those of you that may not know, I mainly do gaming videos. I don't know what gave it away, but this is going to start with a haunted house that I used to live in. I haven't spoken about this story on the channel so far because it's so grim. Like, a lot of bad stuff happened, and I don't know like how I would even explain something like this. But it basically started when I was 7 years old. I lived in a haunted house, and it was a very old home. I originally lived in a new build before that, the same as I do like right now. Not the same house, but it's in like the same kind of style. But my parents decided that they wanted to move to a bigger house. It was very old, like hundreds of years old, and it needed a lot of work doing to it. Like when we arrived, a lot of stuff was falling down. But I remember just walking in and just getting this like horrible feeling. The house never felt like a home to me. I started living there when I was 7, and like even then, I just remember like the first day I ever got there, it just never felt like home. Not like my old house before that I consider to be like mine, you know, and like that would be my safe place. I'd feel happy there, like I'd feel happy to get back from school and be there. But as soon as we moved to this old building, like it wasn't home anymore. It just felt like somewhere that I had to go after school, and to be honest, sometimes I didn't even want to. Like sometimes I begged the teachers, I was like, I don't want to go home, like can I just stay a little bit longer, because I don't want to go back. So the experiences actually started the day after we arrived at this house. There was a roof that collapsed and there was water leaking through into the house. I was at school and my sister was at school and my dad was at work, and it was just my mum in the house. So she rang up 2 builders to come round to fix the roof for her. And these 2 men arrived on the property, really chatty, really nice men. And by the time they got up to the roof, they came back 20 minutes later when my mum was making them a cup of tea in the kitchen, and they just stood at the door, and these 2 very chatty men were no longer chatty or anything. They were just stood silent, looking like they'd just seen a ghost. My mum said to them, "What's wrong? I was just about to bring you your cups of tea up to, you know, keep you going like with the roof." So they held in their hands these 3 Beanie Babies. If you don't know what Beanie Babies are, they're like these things that were trending when I was like really young, and like everybody had them. So they're like little teddy bears that you could collect, and they had like a little love heart, and then they had little things about them inside. Anyway, these 3 Beanie Babies were on the roof of the house with their stomachs ripped open and their eyes gouged out. Like, for no reason. I was 7, I couldn't have done that. Like, my sister was 10, she wouldn't have done that. My mum, my dad, they had things to do. Like, they weren't going to do that. Why were these Beanie Babies on the roof in that state? They didn't know. Nobody knew. And they were just shocked, because the thing is, like, nobody could have got up to the roof of the house to do that. No one. Because where the roof was, it was like such a tall roof. The house did have a 3rd floor, but there was no way. There was no way that, like, even if you like leaned out the window and threw it up there, you couldn't. this was really weird how they ended up on the roof of the house, 3 of them. And the things from the house weren't even unpacked at this point, because this was the day after we moved in. Like, none of this was unpacked. I used to hear like footsteps down the corridor a lot, and this would be a regular thing. This would not just be like the odd creaky footstep. This would be like actual footsteps, like walking down the corridors. It was as if like somebody was walking down there and you just couldn't see them. Honestly, because you could hear them right to the end and then it would just cut out. Things would constantly go missing in the house. I had these 2 little toys that I carry around with me, and I probably had them since I was about 2 or 3. And I used to put them on my bed at night and they wouldn't move at all. Like, they would be there on my bed as soon as I got in, but they would constantly move around. Like, I'd come back one day and they just wouldn't be there, but no one's moved them. Like, no one in my family, no one's even been in the room. But they'd just go, and then they'd appear back a week later, like as if nothing happens. It was odd. And this stuff happened regularly. I've talked about the sink in my room as well. Nothing ever happy happened around that sink. I remember my dad got me like a British Airways bag that he got when he flew BA, and then he bought it back, gave it to me, and like I was taking the items out the bag and I cut myself really badly on a razor. But I wasn't even like touching the razor. Like, from memory, I didn't even have it near me or anything. And then like, I remember my uncle bought me a gift, which was like this little glass pot thing. And I was really excited about it. I put it by my sink, and on the day he bought it, for no reason, it just like fell and smashed into the sink. So not only did it fall, but it actually smashed into smithereens. And yeah, okay, it was glass. But like, I've dropped glass things before, like just on the side like that, and they don't smash into smithereens. Like, this was slammed. It made no sense. I can't remember if this happened first or if the next thing happened first, but I started sleepwalking. And I've never sleepwalked before, but I started in that house. And what would happen is like, I'd get up out my bed and I'd just go and stand by the door frame of my room, just with a blank look on my face. I wouldn't remember anything, but I just stand there staring like right across the corridor to my parents' room. That was the weird thing, because then they'd come up, they'd like put me back into bed, and then I'd be fine. But it would happen at the same time every single night on the dot. And it happened intensely for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then it just stopped. And then nothing. So anyway, a couple of weeks after like the sleepwalking stopped, the next thing happened. But again, I can't remember like if that happened first or this happened first, like honestly, but I was 8, give me a break. So I was lying in bed, and this would happen nightly. I'd just hear from my sister's room just screaming, like devastating screaming, like fear screaming, not anything else, just pure fear. And I would hear the lights go on in my parents' room. I'd hear my parents running down the corridor, and then I would hear a lot of like sort of hyperventilating, like, are you okay, are you okay? And then muttering, and then I would get up out of bed, ask what's happening, and they'd say, go back to sleep, she's just having some bad dreams. So this happened regularly, and it got to the point where I was very worried about like what was happening in the next room, just because it was like, it was terrible. It was horrible to wake up in the middle of the night just screaming and then hear people running down the corridor. I actually found out what was happening because it later on happened to me. So basically what happened was, again, a couple of weeks of this, like every single night. My sister was waking up frozen in the middle of the night to the point where she couldn't move in her bed. And a lot of people say, okay, sleep paralysis. It's like she would have this overwhelming fear, and whatever it was would get closer and closer and closer, and she would just be frozen. And then, for no reason whatsoever, this hand would just like smack her right round the face. But it got like harder and harder and stronger like each night this went on. So at first, like, my parents didn't believe her. They were just like, okay, she's attention seeking, she is making it up, she's woken up in the middle of the night, or she's dreaming it. But as the nights went on, this hand mark got more and more prominent, and because she was only 10 at the time, there was no way she was doing that by herself, like no way. Because this hand mark was long, was bony, was distorted, and it was like all over her face. Like you could see the clear fingers. That's how it was explained to me. And I think they even had photos, but you know, at that time, like you can imagine technology, and I don't think they'd even be able to find them now because we've moved house so many times. So this was all covered over to me. You know, I'd go in the morning downstairs and I'd have my breakfast and I'd say, hey, what happened last night? I heard loads of screaming. What was going on? And they say, no, nothing. Your sister's just having nightmares. She's fine. And then after it happened to her, it happened to me. But I don't remember it happening. But apparently I went to my parents' room. I was like screaming and I said, something's just hit me across the face. And they looked at my face and it was just like completely red at the side with fingerprints running down, all distorted again. They didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. It was mad, to be honest. But I don't remember that. I remember that doors would just slam for no reason as well. That was something that would happen. And it would be specific doors as well. It wouldn't just be, let's say, a door like right upstairs that you'd hear. It would be like you'd be walking down the corridor and a door right next to you would just slam shut. So you'd see it, you'd be in eyesight of it, and you see what was happening, but you wouldn't be able to see like anything else apart from that. There was nothing to cause that much power for the door to close. It was weird. So I've charged another one of my lights, so it was alright because I've just turned the other one on. But that's weird. Like, I charged that camera all day and it just went out, so odd, I know. And just as I was about to say that lights were flickering on and off, doors were closing, things like that, things were just happening in the house, particularly things going missing, like main things as well that you'd miss for no reason. Like, for instance, there was a rule that we had as a family that nobody was allowed to take the TV remote out of the TV room. But for no reason whatsoever, it would just go missing. And then it would appear. For no reason. Like, it was weird. And then you'd find things as well where you didn't leave them. Just stuff like that. There'd be like a lot of accidents in the house. Like, I'd be tripping up a lot and things like that. I remember I was always getting like paper cuts and just bruises and bleeding. Like, just everything happened in that house. Like, everything that I remember, like every time I got hurt as a child, it happened in that house. Through no fault of my own or no fault of anyone else's, and often I wasn't even around anyone else. There was no way. I was about to go to Brownies and I was really excited about going. My mum decided that I would have like a really shallow bath before I went. I was like, have I got time? I don't want to miss it. We should go immediately. She was like, no, we've got plenty of time. We've got 20-30 minutes before we need to go, so I'm going to run you like that much water in the bath, so just have a quick dip and then we'll go. So anyway, what happens is, like, she runs this bath and it's like there's this much water in the bath. It's like there's hardly any water whatsoever. I'm in the bath, the phone rings, and my mum needs to go and get some towels from downstairs. So she decides to just pop down really quickly. She's like, I won't be longer than like 20 seconds. She's gonna grab the phone, get towels, and I'll be right up. So I'm just like sat there by myself in the bath. So there's no one else in the house. I can hear my mum going downstairs, and that was when the water in the bath started to move like that. But I was sitting there and I was thinking, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not moving this water. You know, like sometimes when you can move it with your body and like if you twist and turn and stuff, like the water will move as well. But I was completely still. This water was going like this. Anyway, what happens is it starts to get like really, really strong. Like really strong. Like, for instance, it starts to just like go up in waves, like back and forth as I'm in the bath. And that, my friends, is when the whole thing comes right over my head. And I blacked out at this point, but all I can remember is these like two really bony hands pushing me down under the water. And I completely blacked out. And I don't remember anything apart from being in the bath completely empty and just screaming. So anyway, my mum runs upstairs because I am screaming, like absolutely hysterical at this point. She just like drops the phone, drops the towels, runs upstairs, and I'm in this bath. And this is a weird thing, like my parents didn't believe anything at this point. Like, they were trying to make excuses for everything because they didn't believe it. They didn't believe in this stuff. And like, I didn't believe this. I didn't even know about this stuff. I was so young. I didn't even watch like any horror movies or scary stuff. It was odd how this was happening. She gets upstairs, and the way that she described it to me was that it was just like a paranormal movie. Because she got in the room and she knew at that point something happened that I didn't do. This wasn't me. This was completely out of my control. But the weirdest thing for her was the fact that the bath was completely empty of water. Completely empty. All the water that was in the bath was now on the ceiling and all up the walls and all outside the bath. But I was drenched. My hair was wet, my eyelashes were wet, my eyebrows were wet, like everything was wet. But the bath was completely dry, and the fact that it was on the ceiling, I'm sorry, like an 8-year-old can't do that. Like, how are you supposed to, you can't just like splash it up. And she would have heard this water for some reason went up, like out of the bath. And I have no idea why, but I was just screaming. The first thing that she did was she asked me what happened, and she was like, what's happened? Are you okay? And I said in a really clear voice, and I didn't even know this word when I was that age, that's like the strangest thing. I just looked at her in the face and I said, it was like a tsunami. She was shocked because I didn't know that word when I was young. Like, I'd never used that before. I didn't, like, I had a good vocabulary, but I wouldn't have came out with a word like that in the context that it was and everything. It was completely correct. It didn't make any sense, like how I knew that, and I'd never known it before. And there was nothing about tsunamis going on at school or anything, like there was just nothing. There was no way I knew that, and it was weird. So anyway, she gets a towel around me and she's like, okay, what do you want me to do? And I said, I want to get out of this house. I don't want to be here. So instead of going to Brownies, we just drove round in the car for about 3 hours, I think, from memory, just like driving round. That was it. Like, we just drove, and I didn't want to go back there. I never wanted to go back there again. And I don't even think I stayed in my room that night. Like, I think I just stayed in with her because I was too afraid to stay in my own room at that point or be anywhere near that bathroom. And I was near that bathroom because it was on the way. It went my room, the bathroom, and then their room, and then my sister's room was in the corner. So what they end up doing is they end up getting in touch with the local church. There is actually like a place in pretty much every single church in the UK that deals with this kind of stuff. So they had this team come round and bless the house, which basically means that like you have a priest there in like full attire, and there's other people there too. There were other people there for me anyway. I think they were just curious what was going on, to be honest, because they'd heard some of the stuff. And they come round and they've got their uniforms on, they had a Bible, and they were just like blessing all the walls. Basically, they just had to like walk around the whole house and like throw salt at all the walls. And it was weird. You know, I remember just like watching as a child thinking, what are they doing? This is like all over my parents' wallpaper. What is going on? There was a medium there though, and they think that they didn't like children, and that was the reason why they picked on my sister and I particularly. There weren't any issues with my parents living there. It was just the kids, they didn't like them. So yeah, maybe that like makes sense as to why my Beanie Babies were like thrown up on the roof. So I had a playroom on the 3rd floor of the house, and there were only like a couple of rooms up there because it was like a very small 3rd floor. But for some reason, like, and I don't even know why, but I just wouldn't go up there. And it was the most beautiful room, like ever. It had everything that I would have ever wanted as a child up there. I didn't want to go up there.
No way.
Camera's just gone out for the 2nd time, which is really weird because they were both charged to the full. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, so the house got blessed eventually, and we didn't have any more issues after that until we were leaving the house. So I was actually at school for this. My parents decided to sell just because all the bad stuff that happened, and it just had a really horrible feeling, to be honest. Like, even though there were no more issues after that, it felt uneasy, honestly. Like, knowing some of the stuff as well, you know, going into that bathroom, knowing what happened, it wasn't nice. So the whole house was packed up and they were ready to leave. So they're going through all the rooms and they leave the front door wide open with the key inside. By the time they do their final checks and go to lock up, the front door is locked from the outside of the house for no reason whatsoever. There was no one on the property. There was no way that anybody would be on the property. It was in the middle of nowhere pretty much. Who would do that? Like, no one. There was just the two of them there. They try and unlock it and they try and like do everything, but the door is just completely jammed. They can't get out. So they think that's really strange. They go around the back of the house and they try and get through the kitchen back door. This has never happened before. The doors have never jammed in the house. So they're trying to get out the kitchen back door, and that is locked from the outside as well. They try every single door and window in the house, like any exit strategy they can. they can't get out. All the windows, doors, everything is locked from the outside. So they end up having to smash a window to get out the house, and they left £50 by the side under a rock and just explain it to the next people that came in. That was my ghost story. I know that it's a really weird one, and I feel very worried about telling it. I'm not expecting every single person to believe me, because if I'm completely honest, I've explained like in the past, I'm one of these people that I don't really believe something unless I see it firsthand. But the fact that I've seen this firsthand and the fact that it's happened, I can't not believe it. That's the problem. And, you know, the fact as well that like I've tried to tell this story so many times and things keep going wrong, lights keep turning off twice. I hope you enjoyed it, and happy Halloween. Honestly, like, it's nerve-wracking for me to come out and tell my ghost story, my paranormal experience about the time when I nearly got drowned in the bath, like slapped across the face, and my Beanie Babies got ruined, and yeah. So that's the stuff that I remember off the top of my head, but if I really had a deep think about it, I could probably come up with more stuff that happened in the house. I never actually saw anything specifically, but there were just terrible feelings, you know, all around. And I just remember, like, I'd walk down a corridor and I'd feel like someone was staring at me, but there'd be nobody there, but I'd get a really strong feeling like someone was staring at me. And I still don't think, even to this day, you know, it was my mind playing tricks on me or anything. It was just because I was frightened and the suspense or whatever of walking down a corridor. It would just come on at random times and for no reason. You know, and I think it's scarier at that age. I think, you know, maybe it makes my story more doubtful, the fact that I was younger. But in a way, I think it's creepier, because what do you really know about that kind of stuff when you're 7 to 9 years old? You know hardly anything. Well, I didn't know anything. You know, I was completely sheltered. I lived a completely sheltered life. I didn't know anything about ghosts. My idea of a ghost would be somebody dressed in a sheet. Like, that was it, you know? So it's frightening to think that this stuff happens, and from that early age, I kind of had an idea of it. So yeah, that's just one of them. If you want me to tell any more, then let me know. And if you did enjoy it, then please give it a thumbs up, because these videos are tough for me to talk about, and I'm probably going to get loads of negativity, which I'm not going to enjoy. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you on the next one.